Okay, so when you are done brainstorming for your repeated imagery slash stencil slash watercolor painting, what you're going to want to do is to stretch your watercolor paper. And so you can revisit the demonstration video if you need help with that. And then what you want to do is you want to use, or you could use, you might choose to let it just dry. But if you want to do an inventive background color or color combination, while your paper is still wet, you might want to try salt, plastic wet wrap. Maybe you want to do like wet on wet. You could do drip, rubbing alcohol, or paper towel. And you could create some sort of texture or atmosphere. I have a tutorial video that does most of these demonstrations for background right here. So it's linked in your resources, and you can also find it on my YouTube channel. So whatever you do, make sure that you keep these colors and values light, and make sure these colors are in your color schemes that you have chosen. So then once you have that color down, go ahead and let it dry. And then there is a series of resources that you can use to figure out how you're going to use your stencils and make your stencils. So there are tutorial videos attached to help you out, but you can use a silhouette sort of stencil if you don't need any interior imagery. You could always find an actual object. So this is actually a butterfly cookie cutter, and you could use that to trace it and use that as a stencil. Or you could make or purchase a more detailed stencil. This one has interior. Notice how this has slits cut into it so that there is positive and negative space that are not touching. That's the way that you're going to be able to use the stencil, is that only the stuff in brown will have color. So I have tutorials linked. I have more tutorials linked on Canvas for you, but here's some really basic stencil tutorials on how to make simple ones. When you're making your stencils, you can use technology. You can print your imagery in different sizes using a printer. You can print onto your cardstock. You can draw onto your cardstock. You can use a photocopier to print on your cardstock. So just know that you can use technology so that you don't have to feel like you have to draw everything out. You could trace actual imagery. So here's the tracing of fall leaves. They could be fake or real. And then there's a series of things that you could think about for watercolor. So how do you want to use the watercolor techniques, such as like gradation and wet on wet, right? Dry brush, variated wash. You can do special effects like some of our advanced ones where you sponge, show texture, crayon resist. You can play on painting the positive. So here I'm painting the letters, which would be the positive, or you could paint the negative, where I'm painting the background in instead and keeping the text light, right? And so you want to make sure that you're thinking about how you're going to create that imagery. So you can play on layering and working the positive and negative together, right? So there's a demonstration of step-by-step how I made a series of artworks. So you can see these as I go through. I'm adding darker and darker color as I go in. I'm playing with tracing paper, right, to kind of plan out my imagery if I change my mind before I make something permanent. Here's a tutorial on the crayon resist one that I created. So you can see it once again, step by step. And then here's some videos on how to work the negatives and how to use basic watercolor techniques. So go back to this presentation to make sure that you get these links on how to create particular effects.